Wonderful. Great. Welcome everyone to the bi-weekly ZKsync proposal review call. There are a lot of exciting updates and new topics to get to today, including updates on ZIP16 on-chain submission. We have an overview. We have Alex from ScopeLift joining to provide an overview of the fee flow system post that was posted on the forum last week. Also a presentation from Alex Gluchowski on a new TPP that Meta Labs has been working on, as well as a few other updates on, including on like the staking pilot program and a note on ZKsync Lite as well. So let's dive right in. First, a few proposal updates. So for ZIP15, which was passed and executed on L2 a few weeks ago, is pending L1 execution still. It just passed the Guardian legal review earlier this week. So now it's with the Security Council to execute on L1. That should be executed by the end of this week or early next week latest. And then for ZIP16, this one is still on the forum. ZIP16 is, of course, the V31 release, and it introduces interop calls and bundles, interop fees, support of stage 1 for ZKsync OS, L1 settling chains, and a few other kind of ZKsync OS composability features as well. There was Valera joined our last call, one of the engineers on the Meta Labs engineering team from 2 weeks ago, and he gave a really great presentation, and there are some good notes and a really good recording from that call. If you're interested to learn more about V31, I recommend going to the call notes, the proposal review call notes from last week and taking a look at that. But got an update from them today. It sounds like they're aiming for on-chain submission by the week of June 1st sometime. This, of course, is, there's a few factors at play still here, audits still ongoing, things like that. But based on current conditions, it looks like on-chain submission is expected for the week of June 1st. Any questions on ZIP 15 or 16 before I move on? Great. Okay. Then next on the agenda is the end of season 1 of the staking pilot program. So the end of season 1 was on Monday, May 11th. The program admin is currently working on a report that outlines, or that will outline key metrics, takeaways, suggestions for improvements for any future seasons. And that report is, I believe they're planning to post that within like the next 2 weeks or so. So keep an eye out on the forum for that. There will also be a recommendation for what to do with season 2, or some season 2 next steps will also be included in that report. So keep an eye out for that. Any questions on the staking pilot? Great. Okay. The next on the agenda, we have Alex Keating from ScopeLift joining us today to talk through the fee flow system that he posted or outlined in a forum post last week. Alex, I will pass the screen and the mic over to you so you can tell us a little bit about the fee flow system and how it can be used.
Cool. Thanks, Shelby. Let me share my screen. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yep. Cool. So I posted this to the forum last week. This is an outline of a couple contracts in a system that we deployed last week. And the real goal here is to continue on sort of that roadmap from the forum post last fall from governments to utility on the ZK token. These contracts drew inspiration from Uniswap's recent token jar and fee burn mechanism. And the real goal here is, so, interop fees are coming to the protocol level. This system could act as a place for where those fees eventually end up. And it works with an auction mechanism. So this diagram here is sort of the full cycle of the system. These arbitrary addresses could be like interop fees, just for example's sake, and they are sent to this auction mechanism. Now, the auction mechanism is how we go from, if fees are collected in non-ZK tokens to ZK tokens. So if you take a look at the forum post, there's a simple example here of how the auction works. It's a fixed price auction, which means governance sets an amount of ZK that someone sends in, and they send that ZK in, and they get out whatever tokens they want. So for example, if there were 20,000 USDC worth of fees accrued into the auction, and the governance has set the claim threshold to 1 million ZK, it makes sense for someone to claim the underlying 20,000 USDC. They'll send 1 million ZK in, get out the 20 USDC, and then after the ZK is sent into the auction mechanism, it is then split into either burning and or sending to other contracts. This is all determined by governance. Right now, the deployed contracts do 100% burn, so that ZK would be burned and removed from the supply using the token contract from the V3 upgrade we did late last year. And yeah, governance basically has a lot of control over how this system works. So another sort of mechanism within this system is that, so we did this USDC example. A bidder can't claim any token. Governance has to set which tokens they're allowed to claim. So this prevents if someone sends in spam tokens into the contract or malicious tokens, they can't be interacted with. So governance can set these approved assets, the threshold we talked about, and the burn versus distribution split. So there are also some other safeguards on the contracts. So for whatever reason, governance can pause the contracts. They can update ownership, add faster acting admins if things need to be done more quickly than governance can allow. And we have the addresses and the parameters for the existing contracts on chain. This is what the system could look like. Obviously, we can change it if delegates feel that some of these things should be different. So I think that's pretty much it from my end, Shelby. Anything else you think worth adding?
Yeah, I think maybe just a good clarification to add to this as well. And thank you, Alex, for going over it. So this is deployed on chain, as you mentioned, and you include the contracts in here. However, at the moment, my understanding is that there's no plan. There's nothing actually. It's not turned on per se. There's nothing technically flowing into it right now. It's just deployed. It's a structure that could be used in the future.
Yeah, exactly. So this is it's not connected to anything. It's just a proposed structure. We put it on chain. It can be interacted with if governance decides they want to test this system. But yeah, that's 100% right, Shelby.
Got it. Yeah, good. Thanks for confirming. And in regards to the auction mechanism, Alex, I know there was some deliberation or kind of back and forth on like how to land on the decision to do this sort of auction mechanism. Could you talk a little bit about the differences, between like considerations that went through, that you kind of went through, including maybe differences to like Euler or like how Uniswap does similar auction mechanisms?
Yeah, I think the main consideration was so for people that don't know, Euler also has a fee burn mechanism. They use something that's similar, like a similar auction mechanism, but it's slightly different. Rather than having like a fixed amount, the amount someone can send in changes over time. It like I think it slowly increases or it slowly decreases as value increases in the contracts. And Uniswap uses basically the same sort of fixed price mechanism that we use. And the main trade-offs between the two is complexity, contract complexity, and then operational complexity. So we opted to go with the simpler approach, especially since you know this is kind of the first iteration of, or potential first iteration of fees flowing through the system. So yeah, I think that was the main consideration there.
Got it. Yeah, thanks for going over that. And then also just to like kind of go over like maybe an example of like how things are like set up right now. You mentioned that the burn right now from the splitter contract, 100% of that is sent to the like token burn function. So for example, like if somebody were to, could you maybe go through like the path of like what would happen if somebody were to send like ZK to the mechanism versus like USDC, which I read as like an approved, like one of the approved whitelisted tokens that would be able to enter the auction mechanism. Could you just kind of like maybe with the diagram like go through the flow or like the path of what that looks like?
Shelby, are you asking as a ZK entering as a fee or entering as a bid?
Let's do fee, just because I think also that's another maybe a point or to tie to is just with the V31 upgrades, ZIP16, which we talked about earlier on this call, in-or-out fees will be turned on and could potentially be connected to this. So just for the example, maybe.
Yeah, maybe for this example, Alex, I'm kind of thinking maybe something that would work would be to talk about, let's assume the fees are collected in in USDC. And then we can walk through two examples. One assuming it's USDC. Is that what you're thinking, Shelby? And the other one we can talk about fees in ZK. So
Yeah.
interop will be in ZK, but it's possible that there may be other models where ZK chain transaction is like the fee is in USD.
Yeah, exactly. And it's more just to like it's like it's kind of a complex system, right? So just to like literally draw the picture for visual learners like myself, just to draw the picture of the path of what that actually looks like in the mechanism would be helpful, I think.
Yeah, so for USDC, the USDC enters from like an arbitrary address into the fee flow auction. Some auction participant will send the threshold ZK. So in the example we talked about earlier, let's assume 20,000 USDC for 1 million ZK. They send 1 million ZK into the fee flow auction contract, and they get out the 20,000 USDC. At the as they send that 1 million ZK in, it calls the splitter contract, which will burn. In the case of the deployed contracts, it will burn the 1 million ZK. So that's like the USDC example. For ZK, there's two sorts of ways to do it. The ZK can go into the fee flow auction contract we excluded ZK from being part of the auction mechanism because it doesn't really make sense to send ZK in to get ZK out. But once someone sends in ZK for other tokens within the contract, the ZK is sent to the splitter contract and then burned 100%. There's a second path where the ZK could be, and it's not shown in this diagram, but the ZK can be sent directly to this fee flow splitter. And then someone calls split on the method to burn it directly. So those are kind of the two scenarios in a couple different ways.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you. And could you just scroll down a little bit to like the governance parameters here, or up a little bit? It's like right under the diagram. Yes. So okay. So with that context in mind, now too, you had mentioned earlier that governance like will have controller there. The token, like token time like has the like, and is one of the admins on this contract to change certain parameters, and just wanted to kind of highlight those really quickly. So you had already mentioned like whitelisting tokens for the auction, can change or add tokens to that. Assigning the claim threshold within the auction, assigning destination address from auction to, or from the fee flow auction to the splitter. And just quickly pointing on that, the reason that that's an option, like the reason that that's not a default, is because in the case, for example, in the future, if the splitter contract would have to be maybe upgraded or deprecated and replaced, governance would be able to like change it to a new contract address.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Yep. And then add and remove addresses from the splitter. So now on the splitter side, right now, it's just burn. And because it's just burn, it's automatically 100%, like 100% of any ZK that would be sent to the splitter would be sent to burn. But governance would be able to add additional recipients and also decide on the proportional percentage split of where the ZK would go to each of the different initiatives, correct?
Yep.
Perfect. Great. Okay. Any questions from folks? I just wanted to make sure we highlighted some of the key points here. Here's if there's any thoughts or questions. Yeah, Manuel.
Hey, thank you guys. Sorry for my voice. I'm not feeling very well, but I will try to do my best. I just want to know who is going to fulfill this emergency role? The Security Council?
That's a good question. Right now, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, there's like an intermediate sort of emergency multi-sig right now that's fulfilling that. But this is, again, as Alex mentioned, just a preliminary deployment. This may not or likely won't be like the final deployment or version of deployment for this for this contract. So right now it's just like an intermediate admin, but it could be the Security Council, it could be, another sort of admin like multi-sig made up of like a mix of different entities. It could be anything right now. Again, this is more just like an example. It's a prototype, I think, is maybe a good way.
It's like it still have some room to make some changes in that way. But from my personal perspective, it makes sense to be a Security Council. But well, that's my personal opinion. I don't want to make any final statements in this.
Oh, great. Thanks for calling it out, and thanks for sharing. Ivy.
Hey guys, thanks Alex and Shelby. I had a question, and I think this is not probably on the program itself, but when you guys are thinking of auction participants, is that like let's say organic demand for ZK, or is it more on a set buyback program you guys are planning, and how are you guys thinking on that? It's thought of as a full-blown buyback program, and this is kind of the infra for that, or is it more just an organic demand pathway, let's say? or can be both, I guess. But
Yeah, the way it works is anyone with ZK can participate. So it's not opinionated in how the ZK gets there. We considered creating like preliminary tooling to bootstrap auction participants, but yeah, it's really anyone can bring their own ZK to participate.
yeah, that's the one I had, guys. Thank you.
Building off of Ivy's question, actually. Hi, I'm Steven from Meta Labs. I think actually the important thing about this that I really love that ScopeLift did is that this is a completely decentralized fee flow auction, right? So the important thing there is that I know that in crypto, just in general, buybacks are like all the rage, right? But buybacks in and of themselves cause lots of legal issues that can come up and could potentially lead to, I don't know, any number of legal negative outcomes. Whereas how ScopeLift has designed this fee flow system is really ingenious because it's completely decentralized and there are no like legal issues that can come from having this, because essentially how it's designed is that if governance is to implement this, then it's entirely in the hands of governance, and it's entirely in the hands of governance from what fees are sent, like how much fees are sent, and then what the basically auction parameters are. And then anyone that has ZK, so whether it's a community member or it's anyone, a large organization or anything, can participate in the auction. And logically speaking, it just makes sense because it's people will always act. You can always, especially in crypto, people will always act in their best interest, right? So since this is a fixed price auction, you can think of it like this. If it's set that basically the fixed price of ZK is like 0.18, right? Like 1.8 cents, which is currently is. And then you see the price of ZK go up to 2 cents, right? Then logically, any decentralized actor that holds ZK, it will be in their best interest to swap their ZK and do this auction, participate in this auction, because they'll be making money off of the spread, right, between what the current price of ZK is and what the auction price is. And that in and of itself, I believe, is pretty smart in the fact that it'll generate its own organic demand. And the entire purpose of all of this, you can also think of it like this, is to make ZKsync governance and ZK in and of itself self-sustainable moving forward into the future. And I know that was what Alex had proposed back last fall, where it's like you want ZK to become the basically heart and soul of the ZKsync ecosystem. And in order to do that, it has to have properties where as the network grows, it incentivizes, or maybe incentivizes is the wrong word, but let's just say incentivizes users to participate in holding and owning ZK and as the network grows, right? So as the network grows, there's more chains, there's no more fees that governance is collecting through this auction contract, then people will see and they'll purchase. And then as it is currently set up, everything gets burned, right? So in and of itself is like a decentralized, legally nice way of having that system run. And yeah, and then the cool thing too is that everything is upgradable, everything's controlled by governance. If governance, let's just say the DAO and the community are like, hey, we want to set up a different distribution where, I don't know, theoretically you could say it's like a fund for, ZK community to run their own community programs or something like that, that could theoretically be set up. And then funds from the fee flow auction that go to the fee flow splitter contract some can go to Burns and some can go to that, whatever the community wants, right? And then also just looking down the line, Matter Labs in and of itself, we've been working on decentralized sequencing for a while now. And unfortunately, I don't have any dates for when that will happen, but theoretically, when we have a decentralized sequencer, then users can essentially, how decentralized sequencers work is that users can stake their tokens to run a validator or delegate to a validator. And then the percent APY that they would earn could theoretically come from this as well. So if you have a certain amount of fees that are flowing into this, that then go to a FIFO splitter, and then governance can set up, okay, well, based on the current amount of fees that are going and projecting this outwards, you can expect roughly around, 3%, 4%, 5% APR or whatever by participating in the decentralized sequencer, and it's funded through this. So it becomes a self-sustaining ecosystem that just keeps running in and of itself without any Matter Labs involvement or any other protocol level involvement other than just governance. So that's why I think it's really awesome and super ingenious, and it's a great like V1. And again, it's all based on the community and it's based on governance. So when we see this gets implemented, or if we see it get implemented, or how it gets implemented, all through governance. So yeah, that's just my perspective on everything about this.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, we love to see governance be able to influence all these really cool mechanisms, as it should be. Any other questions for Alex before we move on? Or I guess just comments or thoughts as well, also welcome, like on the system, or like comparisons maybe to other mechanisms you may have seen, also welcome. Yeah, Manuel.
Well, according with the things, because to be honest with you, I need to read the proposal more deeply. But you guys say that this is like a prototype, right? So when is the timeline to have like a more final product for production?
So I think these are production ready contracts. The prototype is the deployed version in terms of the parameters used. Like these contracts have been audited, and so like these are good to go contracts. I think in terms of what governance still needs to decide is like, are these the parameters we want? We need new parameters? Shelby, feel free to correct me if I'm misstating.
Yeah, no, you're hitting it like right on the nose. So basically, so as we've discussed, there's nothing technically flowing into this system yet, right? So before governance would decide, or before it would be decided that something would flow into this system, you would need to make sure that are the parameters that are currently set the parameters that you want? Do we need to maybe adjust some of them before things are sent into this system? Things like that. Upgrade, the admin, for example, or adjust the auction threshold, for example. So, yeah, so it's deployed, it's ready, but before things are plugged into it, it will just be a consideration or discussion that needs to be had if anything needs to change before turning it on, per se. Yeah, Ivy?
No, I was sort of thinking also on the role that governance may play in all of this. Like, it's kind of the idea to have, CK votes every time a parameter needs to be updated, or for example, because I'm saying that might be a little bit of overhead if you need to change like every single parameter with a different vote, I guess. Like token listings might have, I don't know, some risk assessment profile, whatever, right? And that needs kind of a separate way, or might need some more research, let's say, in order to get that, into the fee flow. Whereas, I don't know, changing if it's something is getting burned or redirected, it's like kind of a separate conversation on itself. So kind of curious and hearing some thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's also something that we can definitely discuss and maybe should discuss, for if there's that governance can maybe decide to assign like special powers or like roles for the admin to, adjust specific parameters under certain circumstances, for example, but still maintain like full control over all the parameters in the end. Definitely part of the discussion to be had over the coming weeks. This was just, again, the initial deployment and also initial discussion with delegates here to kind of get the ball rolling here and give some context.
Yeah, sure. Some food for thought, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ivy. And thank you, Alex. Appreciate you coming on and presenting and talking us through it. If you haven't checked out the post yet, highly recommend going to do so. Also with that helpful little diagram there. And if you have ideas or questions or thoughts that come to mind at any time, please feel free to drop a note on the forum. I think we should keep our, also Ivy, like if you wouldn't mind like dropping that comment or question that you just had like on the forum, that would be great. Just to keep everything in one place, all the considerations in one place. Awesome. Great. Okay. Thank you again, Alex, for joining, and we will move on now to our next item on the agenda. We have Alex Gluchowski joining us today, who is the CEO of Matter Labs. He's been on these calls before. You folks probably know him. Alex is joining today to present a new proposal that Matter Labs has been working on over the last few months.